Hello, Game Boys and Game Girls. I'm the Game Boy Guru, and welcome to episode 10 of
Dramatic Readings!
In this series, you get to watch me play a game while I talk about that game with passion, with excitement, with intrigue. Listen now as I tell you about a game that rips off a board game. Or does it? It's Radar Mission. I love playing games. I love video games, of course, because if I didn't, writing this blog and making these videos would be pretty silly of me, wouldn't it? But I also love other kinds of games. I grew up playing board games and card games with my family. I can rock a game of Klondike Solitaire anytime, and I rather enjoy trouncing my family in a rousing game of Scattergories. Yes, I love a good tabletop game. So do a lot of other people, I'd wager, which is why we see so many conversions of popular card, board, and other tabletop games on video game systems. The Game Boy was no exception to this, and received a number of relevant titles. Radar Mission, on paper, is the very definition of taking a board game and turning it into a video game with enough added content, feature functionality, and substance to make it worth playing over and above the source material it shamelessly copies. In this case, it's the venerable classic Battleship. Yes, the game that invented the catchphrase, "You sank my battleship!" that nearly every North American child in my generation could pull out of the air, since almost any commercial break for after-school programming or Saturday morning cartoons, rest in peace, a commercial for some iteration of the game was inevitably aired. The difference with Battleship, however, was that many versions of the game came with more than just plastic pegs, plastic ships, and a nice custom game board. Some versions came with lights, sounds, and gripping nautical warfare action. Okay, so maybe I'm channeling the commercials from memory, but the truth is, as a property to translate to the video game medium, Battleship had already transcended its pressed cardboard and plastic game piece brethren, and was therefore going to need more than just pictures on the screen and cutesy music to spruce it up. I suppose Nintendo was able to produce Radar Mission, or Kaisen Game Radar Mission in Japan, without having to pay Milton Bradley bucket loads of money, because the game originated as a pen and paper game and took on a number of physical board game revisions before Milton Bradley's more famous Battleship game became a household name sometime during the late 1960s and early 1970s. By the 1980s, of course, it had become a phenomenon, and I think it was almost a prerequisite that any American family had at least one Battleship game board in their house. At least in my experience, I believe all my friends' families had the game, my grandmother had it, and they even had it at school where we could play during certain activity times. Game A in Radar Mission sets itself apart by offering a number of features that its inspiration never boasted. First and foremost, when you start the game, you get to choose what size of game board you want, 8x8, 10x10, or 12x12. You only get to choose the size of the initial board, however, because if you happen to defeat the enemy during the first match, you move on to a second level with an 8x8 board, and then on to a third and final level where you're attacking the enemy's base on land. It gives the game a lot more depth than the traditional board game variety. You have the ability to toggle a near-miss feature, which means that when you or your enemy fire a shot that lands in the water next to a ship, a warning sound will play, letting you know that in one of the spaces directly above, below, or to either side of your ship, there's a target you can hit. There's also the Lucky Shot feature, which is triggered in a seemingly random fashion. When you or your opponent miss a shot, you may be granted a lucky shot on your next turn. There are three varieties. First, a single square shot, which, if successful, will completely destroy a ship in one hit. Second, there's a 5-shot blast, which fires off 5 shots in the shape of an X. And finally, a 9-shot volley that mirrors the 5-shot, but stretches out one additional square diagonally from the center point. If toggled, you will be alerted of near misses with these, though it's still a guessing game as to what side the actual target will be on. Then, there's a nifty feature where, midway through a match, your aircraft carrier can launch a fighter jet, which will randomly move to different squares surrounding the location of the aircraft carrier, even after it has sunk, during each turn of the game. If your opponent has sunk all your ships, but your jet is still in flight, you still have a chance to take them out, as long as they haven't taken it down. It adds an additional strategic element because of the need to hit what is, essentially, a moving target. Finally, you can choose between 2 captains to command your fleet, and 3 different opponents to play against, though the actual choice doesn't matter, as each commander plays exactly the same. Game B is where the biggest deviation from the Battleship formula comes in, as it has nothing to do with the board game, but is instead a submarine-based action shooting section with a first-person perspective. You control your sub, and can move left and right on the playfield. Pressing down on the D-pad will submerge the craft, and you can move left and right while watching the radar map, then press up on the D-pad to raise up out of the water and put you back into first-person view so you can either torpedo enemy ships or use your machine guns against the enemy sub. Before each of the 3 rounds, you can equip your sub with a turbo propeller for additional speed, a twin torpedo shot for easier aiming, and powered sonar, which will reveal whether enemy vessels are moving left or right. Occasionally, you'll see bags of money pop up on the screen, which you can shoot to earn more money, which will help you buy those upgrades again for the next round. Both you and your enemy start with the same number of ships each round, and the object is to blow up the last ship of your enemy's fleet before you can, or to blow up your foe's submarine, should you be so lucky. In the first-person view, you may get an indicator arrow pointing left or right as to which is the best direction to travel to reach the most enemy ships to take out. Here's the tricky thing about Game A. The AI is all over the place. As one would expect, the game attempts to approximate what a human would do, but sometimes it feels very random. Anyone I've ever played Battleship against, once they've found one of your ships, they continue to fire in that region until they've sunk the vessel. Sometimes, in radar mission, your enemy will hit your boat, fire a couple near-miss shots, which give them license to sink the vessel, and then, inexplicably, they'll begin firing on random spots on the board, seemingly in an attempt to find other ships. It's a strategy I've honestly never seen, and it's a bit baffling. I'm not complaining, however. Game A provides quite a challenge, and I only conquered my opponent after about 15 or 20 attempts, during a game where the CPU used the aforementioned tactic. Apparently, my nautical warfare skills need some tightening up. Game B, however, really ups the ante in the area of challenge. The enemy sub seems to have an innate sense of which direction to travel for maximum kill speed, and is relentless in firing machine guns and torpedoes at you when you cross its path. My assumption is, because the other sub can destroy you, that you could also destroy it, but I haven't been able to accomplish this apparently Herculean feat. Rather, I have focused on taking out the opposing ships, but I've only ever been able to get past the first round with a scant single ship in my group remaining. In the second stage, assuming I earn enough money to buy all 3 power-ups again, I get absolutely creamed by the lousy enemy craft, and haven't seen the third stage as of yet. Oh, and unless you're a masochist or an absolute Jedi at games like this, don't even think about trying Game B without buying the upgrades before each round, because you'll probably lose. Needless to say, Game B presents a pretty stiff challenge, though I suppose with enough practice, one could best the 3 stages and achieve victory. In terms of the game's visual aesthetics, they're pretty well done. The ships themselves aren't much to look at when you're looking at the game board, but the designs are nice, and the animations accompanying each volley are a nice touch, despite being a bit sparse. Obviously, being a slow-paced game, Game A gets by more on substance than flash, but then Game B has some nice touches, like multi-level scrolling water that looks like a parallax scrolling effect, and a decent depth perception effect when firing torpedoes at faraway ships. The little animations in between stages are a bit goofy, but they're lighthearted and serve their purpose. I also kind of like the explosion effect graphics each time you destroy a ship. The music in the game is well composed. In Game A, there's a standard tune that plays during the bulk of the stage, and then toward the end of each round, the music will change depending on you and your opponent's status. If you are down to your last ship, the music becomes serious and ominous, as if to signal that you're in trouble. If the enemy is down to their last vessel, you get a more triumphant, victorious kind of theme that plays, signifying that you're in the home stretch with only one boat left to bomb. When the opposition gets a lucky shot, another serious, frantic-toned ditty plays while they're targeting and firing, as a means of building tension. The title screen theme is nice as well, with a catchy melody and a nice faux military sort of feel. Sound effects are also decent, with the usual alley-oop kind of high-pitched whistle when firing missiles, a good explosion sound, and a serviceable splashdown sound for missed shots. The near-miss sound is a bit annoying, though one assumes that's the point. Game B's main theme is a bit less memorable, though once you're down to 3 ships, it changes to the ominous theme from Game A, which serves to heighten the action. I like how the music fades out on the options screen when you select your options and start the game. It's a nice effect. Overall, the sound design is pretty solid. It's hard to fault Radar Mission for much of anything because in 1991, the Game Boy was really hitting its stride in terms of development teams really learning how to get the most out of the limited hardware. The slow pace of Game A, coupled with the original DMG Game Boy model's blurriness, means that it was probably the perfect choice for car rides, weekends at Grandma's house, and late-night sleepover game sessions. Game B, with its faster-paced and fast-scrolling ships, doesn't fare quite as well on the original hardware, but since the animation is relatively flat, it still works pretty well. Nintendo took an established formula and added some nice additional features that really buoy the game, sorry, pun intended, and make it feel more fresh. But instead of just stopping there, they added an entirely different second mode, which gives the game even more replay value, especially since both game types can be played with 2 seafaring swabbies. No, this isn't a pirate game, but go with me on this one. Sadly, since I only have 1 copy of the game, I didn't get to experience that. My only real complaint is that, for Game A, there's no mode that allows 2 players on the same device. That would have been a fantastic addition to an otherwise well-made game. Had I known about Radar Mission back when it was released, it might have been on my radar. Sorry, I can't help myself. And might have been a game I would have purchased. I know my younger brother would have played with me, and had there been a 2-player on 1 device mode, I might even have convinced my dad to as well. Regardless, anyone who owns a Game Boy or compatible device, has fond memories of playing Battleship, and enjoys this kind of tactical strategy challenge should be looking this game up and seriously thinking about acquiring a copy. I got mine for $4 loose, and I would think you could probably find a copy in the wild for around that price. It's well worth that and more, and you could easily sink hours. Okay, I'll stop. You could sink hours into it. Highly recommended. Radar Mission, as I mentioned in the review, is a game that, while I'm not particularly good at it, I had a lot of fun playing. And I remember when I played it for the original review, I spent a lot of time on the game and had quite a bit of fun with it. When playing it again to record the footage for this video, it sort of all came rushing back, and I remember how much fun I had playing it. And it's definitely a game I could see myself going back to. Um, One of the things that I like about Radar Mission is that it does enough with the Battleship formula to differentiate itself from just the basic board game, and adds enough new features and different things so that it's not just a rote exercise that copies the original, but it kind of is its own thing by the time you get through all of the new features and things. There are other Battleship type games on the Game Boy as well, including Torpedo Range and an actual licensed Battleship game, so it'll be interesting to see how those stack up. But as of right now, Radar Mission is pretty good, and I think those games will have some stiff competition by the time I get around to them, because Radar Mission holds up pretty well. What do you think? Is Radar Mission a game that you've enjoyed? Do you like Battleship, and is the Battleship version that's on the Game Boy as good or better than Radar Mission? What about Torpedo Range? How does that stack up? Let me know in the comments section below. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at GameBoyGuru. I'll have the link in the description below to the original review that I based this video on. And check out my other reviews via my blog, GameBoyGuru.blogspot.com. Also, make sure to check out Nira and his channel here on YouTube. He provided the awesome Super Mario Land overworld theme intro music for this video and all my other videos. And he has a bunch of other great chiptune and game music covers that he does, and it's fantastic stuff. So make sure you check that out. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for playing, and game on.